And welcome back to Seconds Out. My name is Eamon Khan here with Matchroom Boxing CEO Frank Smith. Frank, good to see you. Fresh off a bit of rest off the back of a busy LA card. How's life?
All good, mate. All good. Thanks yourself.
Yeah, not too bad. All the better for speaking to you, Frank. Yeah, just want to get into, first of all, October 26th at the co-op rescheduled date for Catch or Prograde. Behind the scenes, what was the process like to get this rescheduled?
Yeah, it was a lot of work, a lot of effort to get it done, but we got there. We got through it and got it in place. It's never ideal when you have to reschedule a show. There's so many factors that play into it. You know, you've got the broadcasters, you've got the venue. It's a brand new venue at the Carp, as we know, and they had a load of dates booked up. So we were working through with them. And that's maybe why it took a little bit longer because they were so busy and had to free up some dates. So, but glad we could get it up and running and just, 2 months after, and get it back up and going because it's a great fight. It's going to be a great fight and a great fight night.
Got a sidebar question for you. Dana White took the UFC to the UK and to the co-op, and the timings were made to accommodate the US audiences. What did you think to the execution? And is that something you've ever, or Matchroom have ever considered doing that sort of timing?
Look, it's been done quite a lot by the UFC, in a lot of territories they've gone to, whether it's the Middle East as well, they've done it as well. I think it obviously works for them because of their business model with US pay-per-views. I don't think it's something we'd necessarily do in the UK, because you'd obviously take a US focused fight to the US. Maybe something you might see in the Middle East, as maybe a Saudi event down the line. I don't know. Maybe it's something they'd look at in terms of time frames if it's a US focused fight, because you want to be able to maximize that pay-per-view revenue. There's not a lot of venues you can do it at in the UK because of their licenses and location, especially if it's around a residential area, you're a bit more restricted with it. But it seemed to work well. It was packed out in there at 4 o'clock in the morning, wasn't it? Or 5 o'clock in the morning, people leaving. So yeah, it was interesting, but it may be not something for us, but you could see it in the future in other boxing events in other territories.
Sandy Ryan versus Michaela May is now announced September 27th. Was there any hesitation from Sandy to go over back to the US considering the split draw she had over McCaskill?
No, I don't think so. Look, I think it's a great fight, a great opportunity. Glad we could get it over the line with Top Rank as well. As always, working with other people to put together great fights. But no, I don't think so. I think she knows she can do what's needed to go in there. Look, she was unfortunate that night against Jessica McCaskill. It doesn't happen. We've had other fighters. Casey Taylor went to New York and fought Amanda Serrano and got the decision there. So she was unfortunate against McCaskill, but I don't think that played into her mind. I think she's confident she can go in there and do a job against Michaela Meyer, and she will.
Whilst I'm sure obviously you're getting that rest in off the back of a busy period now, have you kept your eye on the Olympics and the GB cropping specifically? And is there going to be the push to kind of bring a few of these on board?
Yeah, look, we've always had conversations. We've signed a number of Olympians over the years, and we're always watching not just the GB team as well, though. As a global business and a global boxing promoter, we had Beatrice Ferreira who boxed in the Olympics this year, one of our world champions, Brazilian. But we're always looking at new opportunities, and we'll see who comes out and who's looking to turn over. Some may wish to continue in the amateur ranks. Some, sometimes fighters want to have another go and get the opportunity to win medals. So I think it was a very young crop, especially for the GB team this year. And I would guess a few of those would want to have another go at the Olympics. So we'll see what decisions are made now. There's some standout, like Delicious Ori, heavyweight, Lewis Richardson as well. So yeah, we'll see what decisions are made and then go from there.
Does the conversation surrounding Imani Khalif mean that she comes and is presented a bit of a hot commodity to, a bit of a race for her signature?
I don't know. Again, I'm sure she may want to stay amateur as well. It's an interesting time in amateur boxing as well. With everything going on with IBA, etc. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years with that transition, and the IOC's decision, etc. So I think let's see what happens over the next few years. But she's got a big profile off the back of this for sure.
Let's get into last week's action then. It wasn't to be for Israel Majmov, just eked out by Terence Crawford. First of all, did the fight represent itself as a bit of a win-win for Madrimov in the sense that he never really had that breakthrough fight? So to go close with Crawford boosts his profile, and he can then put himself in contention of bigger fights in the future.
Yeah, look, 100%. It was a close fight. You know, people wrote Israel Madrimov off because he'd had 10 fights. And you know, well, not nobody, but a lot of people didn't give him a chance in that fight. Look, we all know what Terence Crawford can do. We all know how good he is. But Israel could have won that fight if the scorecards, you know, if it was the same the other way around, you couldn't have argued. It was a very, very close fight. Like you say, I think it does put him in a great position now because he's going to set himself up for other opportunities. He went in there against the pound for pound, you know, many believe #1 in the sport, and could have won it. So I think, yeah, it sets him up for huge opportunities. He's going to want to challenge for a world title off the back of this, and I think he's going to get those opportunities. You know, we've seen with His Excellency Turk Alal Sheikh and Riyadh season and what they've done in the sport already, and how they support fighters who, you know, who do give it their all and come across and get repeated opportunities. And hopefully we'll see that again here, and big fights to be made for Israel Madrimov for sure.
Now, I wasn't there in person, so I can't say I saw that myself, but I saw a conversation online regarding, you know, this being a bit of the attendance wasn't there as maybe it was presented to be, and it was maybe a harder sell for the US audiences. Was that the case? And if it was, hypothetically, Frank, what would you put that down to? Is it the fighter? Is it the promotion? What is it if that was the case?
No, look, it was packed out in there. You know, you only have to look at the footage and the images from the night. I mean, look at the main event. It was packed. There wasn't, you know, and I think look, a lot of people spin a narrative online,
Right.
of what they want people to believe. And yeah, like I think it took a bit longer to sell. It didn't sell out in a day, quite openly. But when it came round to the night, it was packed in there, and that's all that matters. I think they did a great job. You know, the Seller Riyadh season team, you know, it looked amazing in there, and I'm sure it will drive them to take more events there in the future in the US.
I was quite surprised to see the Crawford took to Insta and really kind of had a bit of a lash out at Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, saying that you guys were destroying the sport, and you know, Turkey Al Sheikh was kind of keeping you in the game. What's your response to that?
Oh, I don't know. Eddie's given his response to it. It was Crawford. Look, it's tongue in cheek. You know, he says these things, and then he sees Eddie, and he's all friendly. So I take it with a pinch of salt. In all honesty, he's that's the way it is. You know, he's going to say things. Eddie's going to respond. I don't read too much into it, if I'm honest with you. They've had a interesting relationship over the years, the two of them, and that probably drives some of the responses you see from Terence Crawford.
What was it like working with Crawford in your experience?
We worked with him a number of times. You know, we've got a good relationship with his team. You know, when you're actually there away from all of this that we see online, you know, pointing at my phone there, but all of the stuff that you see after, it's a very different image that's probably painted or portrayed, or people may give them a view of what the relationship's like. But when you're there, the relationship's perfectly fine with his management team. You know, he works with Harrison, who formerly was at Top Rank, and Ish Hinson as well, who CIA. We all get on very well. Terence Crawford, personally, I'm not close with him. I've met him quite a few times, but you know, there's no issues there. So yeah, that's why I say I take it with a pinch of salt, because a lot of people say things online, and then when it comes to actually in person, it's a very different relationship.
I just wanted to ask you as well too, Jarrell Miller, he got a draw on that card against Andy Ruiz. I saw you field the questions from Lewis Hart on Boxing Social regarding working with Jarrell Miller. But is that the case that Jarrell Miller will feature more prominently on these Riyadh season cards, given his history?
Look, I think he's going to get more opportunities for sure. You know, I didn't manage to watch all of that fight, but from what I see and everyone's opinion, he deserved to win that fight. I actually thought he would win that fight. You know, Andy Ruiz had been out the ring for what, 2 and a bit years. He'd had 2 fights in just 4 years. He hadn't been active enough. So and Jarrell looked in the best shape he's looked in a while. He's lost 40 or 50 pounds or something like that from his previous fights. So look, I think he's going to get other opportunities. I obviously gave my view on the whole relationship and the change in position, but he's going to get other opportunities, I'm sure. And you know, people say things, and people's view and position changes. I suppose that's what it comes down to.
I wanted to ask you as well, too, in your experience, that Bacoli looked stunning in his fight against Jared Anderson, but what do you think of the matchmaking of putting Anderson in with Bacoli at that point in his career?
Yeah, it was risky. I actually, when it got announced at the start, I always thought Martin Bacoli was going to beat Jared Anderson. You know, so I don't think it's. I never changed my view. I think Bacoli has been avoided for a long time. And look, the reality is Bacoli doesn't bring much to the table for if you're picking an opponent, is the truth. You know, I thought it was for sure a step too far, and it proved to be that. Jared Anderson's going to come back in great fights. He's young. He's still got huge opportunities in the sport, you know, but Martin Bacoli sort of put himself in a position there to be considered for fights now. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people are still going to look at Martin Bacoli and go, don't fancy that. Because again, you know, no disrespect, he hasn't got the commercial profile that other heavyweights have, you know. But he's going to get opportunities off the back of this and off the back of that performance, because it was a great performance. You know, I think for Martin Bacoli, it's going to be a push to really get himself high in the sanctioning bodies to get those opportunities to fight for a world title, because I don't see many people taking him as a voluntary option, being honest with you.
So is that the case? You feel like he just has to, get bigger and better wins if he can, to force his hand really to get one of the big fights he's looking for?
I think so. I think that's what he's going to have to do, build himself into a position to get high up the rankings in order to get the shots. Because like I said, we saw what he did on Saturday. You know, people aren't going to be jumping out of their chairs to go and call out Martin Bacoli, because he doesn't, again, like I say, from a commercial aspect, he doesn't bring a huge fan base and a huge following. You know, there's other heavyweights and other fights that could be made, which are probably easier and bigger from a profile perspective, is the reality of it. He's going to get more opportunities now than he did before. This was really that sort of initial breakthrough moment he was waiting for, because before this, no one wanted to fight him. But I do think to get those, you know, to get to a world title shot that he'll speak about, etc., he'll need to build himself up those rankings and get himself into a position to get a mandatory.
Let's get to one of the big topics in the recent 24 hours or so, that being Canelo Alvares. He's had this back and forth with Turk Alal Sheikh regarding the fallout for a Crawford fight. I'll let you set the table, Frank, as to what you've seen there, and if you think if that Crawford fight is completely off the table now.
I don't really know. I know from looking at all the comments, you know, Canelo's obviously focused on his fight against Edgar Berlanga, which is 6 weeks away from now, or 5.5 weeks, something like that away from now. He's fully focused on that. You know, he's always been quite the same whenever we've worked with him in the past. He likes to focus on what's in front of him before he starts thinking about what's next. You know, His Excellency's obviously working on fight cards now for, you know, multiple fight cards throughout the year, and I'm sure into next year as well. He wants to make plans of what he wants to deliver, and not always does it fall in line, you know, from both sides. And I think that's what you're seeing here. You know, Canelo wants to focus on what he's got in front of him, and His Excellency wants to put his plans in place. So I don't know. Anything's possible, as we've seen in the sport of boxing. Who knows what tomorrow holds? Because again, who would have said a year ago Matchroom and Queensbury would be working together? Who would have said, like, all of these things? So, you know, let's not look too far into the future. Everyone's going to make their plans and work on what they need to do. Everyone's got their right to have their own view and position. And I think we'll see how things play out.
Canelo mentioned that he didn't like the way Turkey does his business. You've worked with both fighters. You work with Canelo, the fighter, and Turkey right now for Riyadh season cards. What is the difference in the way that they do business?
No, I think everyone's got a different perception. Everyone's got a different position as well in the sport. You know, look, Canelo has got a lot of people after him, obviously, because of the commodity he is and the profile he has. And, you know, everyone has their own view on the way they want to do things. And sometimes that doesn't tally up. It doesn't make one wrong, doesn't make one right. But everyone can decide their own. And Canelo's in a strong position, but at the same time, he's got a fight lined up, and his view, I guess, is he doesn't want to look beyond that fight. He doesn't want to plan because his focus is fully set on that. But I can't really speak on the way everyone does business. We've done great business on both sides. I'm not going to say anything detrimental about the other because I can't, because we wouldn't be doing business with the various people if we didn't agree with the way they did business. But I can't speak on behalf of the two of them because that's only for them or those two sides to speak on.
In your position, having made lots and lots of fights in the past, how much do you think the deal has been hindered for Benavidez or for Crawford because the valuation that Canelo puts on those fights is either accurate or inaccurate?
I mean, look, I think there's two completely different ends of the spectrum. I think when you look at, I get what Canelo's saying about Benavidez. I understand what he's saying. Like he's a lot bigger than him. He's a brilliant fighter, obviously. I think when you look at Terence Crawford against Israel Madrimov, I don't think Terence Crawford is big enough to then go up another 2 weight divisions. I'm more surprised the Terence Crawford fight isn't of more interest to Canelo, being honest with you. And again, I'm sure he'll have his reasons, and like I say, it'll probably be down to money, like everything in life. But I would be very surprised watching and not taking anything away from that performance against Israel and that fight, but size. That's why there are weight divisions in this sport, and I would think Canelo would look at that fight and go, do you know what? He's probably not big enough, and he probably isn't. It's a huge jump especially from where he started. Even to 154 was a big jump, and we saw Israel Madrimov give Terence Crawford probably his toughest fight to date. But I do get the Benavidez piece, and I also get Canelo gets paid a lot of money, and he's going to want a premium for certain fights. So what that number is, at the end of the day, only he can decide what he wants to fight for. He's got a lot of money. He doesn't have to fight. He doesn't have to do anything anymore. He's put himself in that position. He's worked to be in that position. And only he can decide what that number is. Whether someone's willing to pay it or what you determine the value of it is only, it's only set by what someone's willing to pay. He'll put a price on the table, and we'll see if it happens.
How much further has the door swung open then for Boots to fight Crawford either at 147 or 154?
I think that's a massive natural fight for sure. Whether it happens next, whether it happens down the road, that's definitely a fight that will happen. Boots, we saw, he had 15,000 packed out in his last fight in Philadelphia, and that was just the first fight we've had together. I think his profile can be even bigger than it is today, and that's a natural fight. So I do believe that happens. Like I say, whether it's next or whether it's down the road, we'll see. But it's a fight that will be made for sure.
Got last 2 questions for you, Frank. Any closer to closing the deal on Shakur Stevenson?
No, I mean, I'm not really. It's conversations Eddie's having. He's been dealing with Shakur, his team, James Prince and all the team. And we'll see how things play out. I think, Shakur did multiple interviews in LA. I think he likes the way Eddie does things. He likes the way Eddie promotes. And I think I'm hopeful we can get something done there. But again, he's going to have everyone after him. He's a hot commodity in boxing. And we'll see how things play out. But I like the signs, and hopefully we can get something done.
And finally, I did hear a whisper in the wind that there could potentially be a fight added on the AJ Dubois card. Any truth in that?
Which fight? I don't know.
I can't
promise you, I actually don't know.
I don't want to say too much, Frank.
Okay. But no, I'm not sure.
You're not sure. Okay, then fair enough. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Frank, appreciate your time. Thanks for speaking to SecondsOut, so hopefully we'll see you very soon.
No worries, mate. Good to catch up.